Hello driving intelligence community. If you don't know by now that I love to update or modernize my vehicles or add extra features and you're not watching enough of my videos, so you better subscribe. In this video, I want to talk about adding power adjustable brake and gas pedals, so stay tuned. In this video, I want to add power adjustable gas and brake pedals to my 2002 F-150. It came as a standard feature on the vehicle. My XLT did not come with that, but my Harley-Davidson F-150 did. Obviously, what you're going to need is the gas pedal and the brake pedal. This has the motor on it. These are unboltable, and I'll show you that later. But there are a few other things you're going to need to do this project. Number one is obviously the dash panel. And the dash panel comes with a switch, which lowers and raises the brake pedals. And there's also a collection of wiring connections and bolts, etc. that you're going to need to complete this project. So let's go into this a little deeper. I did some research on this myself on the internet, and I found out that these motors, this is the motor right here, have a tendency to fail. So the first thing we're going to do now is test this motor. I'm going to hook this directly up to the battery and show how the motor will activate and raise and lower the pedal.
As I mentioned in the intro, I did some research on these power adjustable pedals, and I saw online that there were a lot of complaints, or maybe not a lot, but there were complaints about these motors failing. So the first thing I want to do to make sure that this assembly is going to work is test the motor. And to do that, I've hooked up some jumpers. I've got one jumper already on one side. I'm going to connect the other jumper on the other side. The switch on the dash will alternate between positive and negative on each side of these wires. So right now I have the actuator all the way in its compressed position, so this is the lowest position of the brake pedal. And I'm going to connect this wire on the other side to make sure that this motor works. So it works in that direction. Now I want to reverse it to make sure that it operates in the opposite direction. So it works perfectly, even sounds good, so no problems. Now one thing I want to note is that when you pull this assembly out of a junked car, if you're going to pull it out yourself, a junked F-150, get both sides of this connector, because what I found in other projects is that sometimes this connector doesn't match what's actually in the vehicle. If you get both sides, you don't have to worry about repinning this side of it, because you'll have everything you need in case something doesn't match up. When I removed the brake assembly from the F-150 that was in the wrecking yard, I took it off the firewall. There are 4 mounting holes here, 2 more over here. This actually mounts it to the brake master cylinder. So when you pull this all away, the brake master cylinder and the vacuum assist falls away from the firewall. Well, after I took it out, I realized that's not necessary. If I remove this nut and pull this bolt out, then this spring, which is not very much tension, it's quite easy to compress it, is released, and this bracket stays in the vehicle, and then you can just replace this inside the truck. And that makes things a lot easier, because to pull this thing out, there are a lot of clearance issues when you're taking it out with this bracket. So if you're just taking the pedal, remove that nut right there, pull the bolt out, and then you'll have to compress the spring to put this back into your vehicle. I've separated the brake pedal from the bracket, took the nut off, and here's the bolt, the long bolt, the spring assembly, and then there's another insert inside here. And I'm going to keep these all together so I know the order when I reassemble everything. An extra step I'm taking before going further is removing this cable, which goes between the gas pedal and the brake pedal. This cable is what the brake pedal motor uses to adjust the gas pedal. And what I wanted to do is make sure that it turns freely, which it does. I've cleaned out the connection points, and I'm going to put some synthetic grease in there just to make sure that it runs smoothly. I always take the opportunity to paint parts, get rid of the rust, protect it, and even if it's under the dash, I want it to look nice. So I put some Rust-Oleum gloss black paint on this, and I'm going to put some plastic coat on the foot of this just to protect that, because it's got some missing paint as well. While I'm waiting for the Rust-Oleum to dry on the brake pedal, I decided to get to work on this panel. You can see that it's got scratches. I've just degreased it, washed it really good. I'm letting it dry in the sun. And then I'm going to use this color bond paint. I found out that this is as close as you can get to the original color. Doesn't quite look the same, but it will once it gets on there. And before I do that, I'm going to put an adhesion promoter on there just to make sure that everything stays adhered to the plastics. I decided I'm going to start with the gas pedal because it's the easiest part to start with, and I don't have to do the brake pedal at the same time while the paint is drying. There are 3 bolts that hold this in, and at the top you can see the throttle cable that needs to be pulled through the slot. Incidentally, you can tell that I've done that little modification to take care of the problem that I had with a stretched cable. I used some washers and a zip tie, and it's holding it perfectly. To ease the removal of the gas pedal, I'm going to take off this cover, this engine cover. It's held in by 3 10mm bolts. And I'm going to release the throttle cable. And I need to trace which one that is. Okay, so this is the throttle cable on the inside. I'm going to release the cable, which gives me extra slack underneath the dash to get the gas pedal out. So this can all be pushed back. Now that I have released the throttle cable from the throttle body, you can see I've pulled the gas pedal down, and I have much more slack in that cable to be able to pull these inserts out that allows me to get that throttle cable out and the gas pedal out of the vehicle. Okay, so the gas pedal is out. The hardest part is this little clip that's in here. It's actually a sleeve that needs to be compressed from the back side of the gas pedal. So this is the back side here as I flip it around. You'll have to compress that to push it out so you can pull the throttle cable out from the slot. Here are the 2 gas pedals next to each other. What's interesting is that the power adjustable is much more heavy duty. It's all metal construction. This one is just plastic. And it looks like the angle of the pedal is going to be more acceptable to me because I'm 6 feet 2 inches, and it looks like this plastic pedal is further toward the seat than this one in its most retracted position. Yet to see what that's like. Gas pedal is installed with the 3 10mm bolts, everything lined up. You can see up there that the throttle cable is re-engaged. I've got the cable that is between the brake pedal motor and the gas pedal, which adjusts both of them at the same time. That's installed, waiting for the brake pedal to be installed. This looks significantly better with the new paint on it. See how close it matches once I install it. The only bad thing is I had to paint over the pedals word that was sitting right here, but you got to know what that switch is for if you're installing this, so who cares. Anyway, it's really coming together. I'm getting close to finalizing this project. Looking forward to getting these parts, these final parts in there. Next step is to install this panel. I've got it all painted up, ready to go. Need to remove the old one. So the first step to remove this is to pry out this headlight switch. Put a little piece of tape here and use a screwdriver to pry that out from the bottom. Pull straight out, disconnect the electrical. This piece right here is not held in by anything but clip fasteners, so you just pull it straight out. You'll have to drop the steering wheel all the way down to get that out. And then there's a series of screws that hold in this panel that need to be removed. And we'll find deep behind here the wiring that was already built into this XLT to go to the switch for the pedals. With the trim pieces removed, you can see how this truck was wired, and not only for the adjustable gas and brake pedals, but also for a rear window slider. Maybe that's a future project, not sure. That's a big job if you don't have a rear window slider already. But got to untape this and get it ready for installation of a new panel. I'll remove the vent, which is held in by 2 screws in the back. I think they're 5.5mm, transferred over to this panel, and it should be good for installation. New panel is installed. I haven't screwed it in yet, but you can see I've got the wiring pulled through and ready for all the switches. Just got to screw it in and then put the other trim pieces in. Panel is in. I've got all the switches back on. Everything's screwed in, and you can see when I turn on the lights that this light will turn on, indicating that it is electrically active. So this phase is done. Only thing left now is to install the brake pedal. Now that the brake pedal's been painted and it looks fantastic, I'm going to put some dry lube in this thing. Got to reinstall the motor, and then it can go in the truck. Now for the fun part. This is where it's really cramped and difficult to get in here for the brake pedal. What you see right here is the connector for the motor. So this comes from the switch. You can see the top of the brake pedal up here. It's really way up in there. You got to get this bolt out. As I indicated at the beginning, there's a yellow pin. There it is. There's the yellow pin. It has to be pulled and then reinstalled after you remove the brake. So that holds it onto the rod that goes to the vacuum booster and the brake master cylinder. Here's a better view of the yellow pin. It goes from top down and obviously keeps the brake pedal from disengaging from the brake master cylinder while you're driving down the road. Old crusty brake pedal is out, and it's a little surprising how rusty it is. This truck was never in the rust belt. Anyway, the freshen up unit is ready to go in now. These pedals are substantially done except for putting the pad back on the brake pedal, and it works. And because I lubed it up, dry lube and some grease, it is really smooth. Actually, it's smoother than my Harley Davidson F150 with only 31,000 miles. So I need to go lube that one up. But I did have problems getting that brake pedal in. Toward the beginning of the video, I mentioned that this spring would not be too difficult to get in. I thought the tension wouldn't be that tough. But given the tight spaces underneath here, I had a very difficult time getting that in there with the bracket already in place. I was able to do this, but it took a lot of effort. You can see the clip of the spring on the brake right there. And on the left side, you see where the other part of the spring is against the bracket. What I had to do was put a string around that spring and pull it down toward the firewall around the brake, the brake rod that goes to the brake master cylinder, and then use some muscle to pull it back behind that brake pedal. Now the other brake pedal that did not have the power control did not have this spring, but I think that spring's there because of the extra weight from the assembly here, this brake power assembly, which looks a lot worse in this video than it really does. Anyway, it worked. I got it in there, and if you're a little more adventurous, you can take a lot of other things out to get that bracket and the brake pedal assembly in there at the same time. I didn't feel like doing that after taking it apart at the junkyard. But so you have some options here, but I would say that is the most difficult part of this operation. And here's the final product. Gauge bezel in, the headlight switch is in, the pedal switch. The colors match really nicely. That was a pretty good selection. And the pedals work perfectly. It was a little challenging on the brake pedal as I indicated, but I have adjustable pedals. Very cool feature. Hope you liked this video. If you did, remember, thumbs up, comment below. See you next time on Driving Intelligence.